For those of you joining via Facebook or YouTube, we have staff members monitoring the comment sections of both platforms, and they'll feed your questions to us in the Q&A box. So now that all of that is over, we're going to go ahead and jump in and get started. Again, I encourage you to ask questions when they come up, and we will do our best to address those when they get asked. Now, John, this is absolutely one of my favorite times of the year. We're getting ready on Friday to drop our first round of admissions notifications. So those students that applied by December 1st and got everything in, we're getting ready to let them know what their admission decision is. I know we're getting some calls and things like that about what does that look like, and I know that we're going to have students watching this that had met that December 1 deadline and are a little anxious about what to expect. Can you walk us through what our drop process looks like and when students can hear and kind of how that process is going to go?
Sure, absolutely. And so thanks to everyone for joining us. I'm John Marfield. I'm Executive Director of Admissions here at the University of Utah. This is also exciting for me personally because this is my very first time notifying prospective students of their admission decision here at the University of Utah. I started back in July, and so it's been a very interesting time to start a new job at all, but also a very interesting time to be in an office of admission where we have been doing things so differently than ever before this fall, especially coming up this spring. And so this is an exciting time. I'm really happy that we made it to this point. There's been a lot of hard work on the students' part. There's been a lot of hard work on our team to kind of fairly evaluate and get to know our students in this virtual setting. So just wanted to kind of quickly introduce myself and let you know about that. So basically what's happening is this week we are notifying all the students who applied by the December 1st deadline, which is very exciting. And so everyone who got their application in by December 1st, that means you got your Common App in, you got your transcripts, all of your, if you said that you want us to consider your test scores, all that came in, and we consider all those students. They're going to be finding out this week. So what's been happening is starting actually last week, we have been stuffing all these admission packets. There are thousands of students who are going to be notified of their admission decision this week, which is very exciting. It takes a lot of people to stuff these really exciting packages that I'm thrilled for you all to receive if you are going to be one of our students who will end up getting one of these packages. And stuffing those all weekend, and we were able to actually start mailing out our decisions earlier this week. And depending on where you live on the country, and kind of depending on the whims of the U.S. Postal Service, that will sort of determine when you receive your package if you've applied and you're waiting for your decision. But know that those are in the mail, whether we send them out a couple days ago or we send it out today. Everyone who actually is going to receive a decision from us at this point in the early decision drop, all of those decisions are actually in the mail right now, which is very, very exciting. But we promised a decision to all of our students by Friday, January 15th, which is just in a couple days. And so maybe you'll get your admit pack soon, maybe you'll get it this weekend. But everyone who has a completed application by December 1st will get notified by us on Friday. And so what we're going to do, in addition to the admissions package in the mail, hopefully you get that first, because that's kind of exciting. I think it kind of harkens back to the day of old school where the only way to hear a decision about your admission is in the mail. And so there's something kind of exciting about that mailbox moment. And I hope that if you do get your package before that, that you feel that excitement. It's kind of fun. But just to make sure that everyone gets their decision, either way, on Friday, we're going to be sending out electronic communication at the end of the school day. So we don't want to send it in Mountain Time. We don't want to send it out hopefully when you're still in schools, because that can be really distracting. But we're going to be sending out an email and a text so that you know a little bit that you can check your admissions decision online. So that's a little bit about where we are right now in notifying our applicants.
Great, thanks, John. Now we got our first question through Facebook, and this one is, any idea when graduate decisions will be ready? John, do you want to respond to that, or you want me to?
You go right ahead, Mateo.
This is one of the things with John being a little new. So with graduate admissions, it kind of varies because ultimately we rely on the department to make the recommendation and whether or not they want to admit graduate students to their programs. And then we're the ones that send that out. And so it really does vary depending on the academic program that you have applied to. What I would recommend is reach out to our graduate admissions office via email, and you can find that email address on our website at admissions.utah.edu, and they can give you a better idea of when those decisions will be mailed out. Okay, so one of the things that continues to come up, John, is the comments or the concerns about COVID. We've been in a pandemic now for a year almost, and there have been a lot of changes from just how things are going in the schools and whether or not students are in class in person or online, and grading changes and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about what our approach has been as we are taking COVID into account in the application process?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, something that's important for everyone to know is that our admissions counselors have specific geographic regions and high schools that they cover. And so they have really gotten the chance to get to know the high schools really well. And a big benefit of that to the students who are applying to the University of Utah is that they can be assured that their applications are being evaluated fairly in the context of their high school, especially the ways in which their curriculum, their extracurriculars, everything has been disrupted because of COVID. Now, for us, what we normally do in the fall is we get on the road, and we are very excited to spread the good word about the University of Utah. We're connecting with students in person. We're connecting with counselors, giving them updates. But we weren't able to do that this fall. We still connected with students and families. We did it all virtually. But at the end of the day, we really didn't get that opportunity. And so it was really hard for us. We had disruptions within our admissions process, and we know there were many, many disruptions within kind of the high school experience as well. And our admissions counselors know that really well and in great detail based on their schools. And so, for example, and typically an admissions counselor who'd want to go visit a high school or even set up a virtual visit with a high school this past fall, they would have something on the books, and then all of a sudden all the classes that were like maybe a part remote, part in person, then they would all go remote, and then everything would change. And then the scheduling would change, where this group of seniors, they weren't going to be available anymore on this day because they had to switch everything around. And so this fall was a really weird time, because even in our best efforts to connect virtually, which we did a great job of, there were still times where we were just watching it happen in real life, just watching the curriculum change, the grading change, the response from the parents and the counselors change. And really what we've found as well is that counselors were just trying to make it work, and teachers were just trying to make it work. And we wanted to make the connections, but we knew that was your first priority is making sure that your education is happening. So all that is to say is that when we're reading an application this year, we weren't in the room with you in the school, but we fully understand how dramatic the changes have been to just day-to-day life. We understand that remote education is tough. Some students are okay with it, but a lot of students, it's just not a good way for them, to do well, to kind of show their best work. And, we are thinking about all of that in context, and we're trying to be as flexible as we can with our applicant pool to make sure that we're giving everyone a fair shake. And I think we've done a really good job of that this year, trying to take all those things into consideration. But I hope that the families out there and the students out there don't think that we don't realize all the difficulties that have been happening. We've experiencing, like I said before, difficulties on air, and it's been a very different kind of thing. But we definitely have been taking all that into consideration when getting to know you, especially when there's been grading changes. Some schools are doing no letter grades or pass fail or whatever it is. And at the end of the day, whatever changes that are happening because of COVID, we're absolutely not holding that against the student. It's just not fair. It's out of your control. And I think one of the good reasons why we wanted to do this session now is that we've had a whole semester and term and part of our admissions process to sort of reflect on what just happened. It was a bit of a whirlwind. And so now we can talk with a little bit more authority about, how we're going to look at these things, as opposed to in the summer when everyone was asking us, how are you going to look at this because of COVID, and how are you going to review these applications? We were like, well, we plan on doing it like this, and it was all kind of hypothetical. But now we've been doing it, and now we experienced a full fall of kind of a fall of disruptions. And so we're excited to kind of talk to you a little bit more right now during this time to kind of give you that insight from our side.
The other thing I'd like to add about that is when you are filling out our application, and we're using the Common App application this year, and there's a section that specifically is for students to talk about the impact of COVID and to let us know about any unusual circumstances, or provide a space for students to share how they've been impacted by COVID, so that we can again take that into consideration. The other place that you can provide information to help us understand what's going on is the additional information section. Both of those are going to be very useful for us to get some context as we're reviewing your overall application.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, is we want to have as much context as possible, because no one is experiencing the COVID epidemic the exact same way, and we only know what you tell us. It's very important for you to understand that. We know that you're affected, but if, there have been course disruptions, and other life disruptions and issues financially and all these different things that would be really important for us to know when getting to know you. Those things that Mateo just mentioned are really important parts of the application that are provided for you, so that we can get to know you even better. Because when we say that we review applications in kind of a holistic way, and we can talk about that in a minute, that's really part of it as well.
Well, John, you've kind of opened that door about the holistic review process. As you think about our application, what are the things that stand out that stand out in an application as we are doing our reviews?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, we look at all the different things that are required as part of the application. Everything that you put in your Common App is reviewed as a part of your application. But I would say first and foremost, of course, our eyes are first going to go to your academic performance in school. That is something that we're going to look at right at the start. And a lot of times, one of the most common questions that we'll get when we're on the road, we're talking with parents, is, what GPA do I need to get in? I have this GPA, what are my chances of getting in to the university? And the reality is that, it's not about that for us in our admissions process. And when talking a little bit about kind of the holistic nature of how we review the academic portion of the Common Application, we are not just looking at the fact that you have a certain GPA, but what we're also looking at is the level of rigor of your schedule. And that's particularly important this year as we evaluate our applicants for merit scholarship consideration. Whereas in the past, we're test optional now, where in the past, the test score in terms of the quantitative factors that we look at was a primary factor that we would look at. And now that we're test optional, if you say, I want you to look at my test score, we will see it and we will see that it's there, but it's no longer this primary factor that we're looking at when we're reviewing the quantitative parts of your application. It's become a much more secondary part of the application. And if you ask us not to review your test score at all, then it has no bearing on your application. And so that is kind of the way it works. So it's not that we're test blind. It's not that if you submit the test score, we don't look at it. If we ask you on the application, do you want us to look at your test score? And many of you said, yes, I would like you to look at my test score. And if you do, we will look at it. But it's not going to be like, oh, they have this score, so they're in or they're not in. To us, it's just going to be more context to sort of corroborate the other sort of academic parts of your application. And so maybe you're really proud of a test score and you feel like it adds value. That may be something that you want us to look at. We'll look at it, but it's not going to be the thing that makes say like, oh, they have this great test score, let's definitely admit them, or let's definitely give them this scholarship. Really this year, because we've gone test optional, we had to find something else to make our decisions on. We had to have some more data and information. That's really where the rigor of the schedule has come in. We really focused on that when we're reviewing your applications, especially for merit scholarship consideration. And so, if someone's has a 4.0 GPA and they're at a high school that offers all these advanced courses and options, but they haven't taken any of them, but there's maybe someone who has maybe a slightly lower GPA, but has really exhausted all these challenging courses that are offered at their high school, we're going to really give great preference to the students who have a great deal of challenge in their schedule. When we're choosing students for scholarship and things like that. And so that's a little bit about where that comes from. So it's not an exact formula, it's not an exact science, but that is absolutely how we've had to change our review in order to not put a focus on test scores anymore. And I think what's really nice is that we're going to be able to give opportunities to so many students who maybe testing is not their strength, right? But when given the opportunity to challenge themselves in school and have not have that pressure of sitting down and taking a test for 3 hours and saying, okay, this is going to make or break my admission decision. I'm just going to take these courses. I'm going to focus on the work throughout the semester, and that's a much better indication of my abilities. Those students are going to have a chance to really stand out in our process in where they may not have as much in the past. And so it's a really exciting new way for us to read applications. We've never read applications like this before. And so that's why in the summer, when we made this test optional policy change, and everyone was asking us, what does this mean for reviewing our applications? How is it going to be different? We had an idea, but now that we're doing it, we're getting a sense. And I think it's a fantastic way to get to know you. It's a fantastic way to identify our strongest students in our pool, regardless of test score, which is really exciting. And so that's a little bit about kind of the quantitative metrics, but then there's also qualitative pieces, right? Some of you may be applying to like a business scholars program or honors program where there's additional supplements or things that they're looking at. So all of that will matter. And then some of you are also going to list in pieces of involvement in your common application. And, that's another thing that really was disrupted this year with everything in COVID. Not a lot of contact sports, not a lot of being in school, and all those clubs and organizations maybe went on the back burner. And we fully understand that. We know that the hours dedicated to extracurricular activities will be very different. A lot of, athletic competitions being canceled. It just kind of depends where you live and where you are. But we are going to look at all those things with a grain of salt. And we're not going to have any judgment to say, oh, what happened in this last year? They stopped getting involved in this activity that they've been involved in for the last 3 years, especially if you address it in the additional information section of the Common App, like Mateo had talked about previously. That is absolutely fine. Of course, if there's anything else that you do that's outside of a traditional extracurricular, which is taking care of family, work with, your church, your synagogue, whatever it is, any sort of responsibilities that you have, that's a great thing to highlight, something that we really see as a value. And many students have many more responsibilities these days. As family dynamic changes and the financial situation of our country is sort of in flux, just the things that we're doing after school are maybe a little bit different. And we don't want you to discredit those things if that's a part of your story. So that may be a very long-winded answer, Mateo, but that's a little bit about sort of the things that come to mind. What, am I missing anything?
No, I think you covered it all. The thing that I love about holistic admissions is that it really does give us an opportunity to get a more complete picture of who a student is and what they bring to the table and likelihood of success at the university. Those are important things. When we look at just GPA and test scores like we did many years ago, it left out so many other aspects of who you are as an individual and what you can do and your potential to succeed and thrive in our environment. And now with Holistic, it allows us to consider all of these different facets of who you are as an individual. The benefit of a GPA is it's a look at your academic ability or qualifications over time, whereas a test score is who are you on this given day at this given time, and that changes. We see that all the time when students take the test multiple times. It varies. Now, a question did come in, and I think this is a great question because it's one that we get a lot. It says here, in California, we were not able to take the SAT because it kept getting canceled. But I did not explain that in the application. Do you already know that this is happening in the Los Angeles area? And I signed up 3 times, and 3 times the test date were canceled. We get it.
We know. Don't worry. We're very, very aware that not only is this in LA and in California, but this is here in Utah. It's everywhere. Trust us, we're very, very familiar with this issue. The only thing is there are some students who indicated on their application, I would like you to consider my test scores, but then their test dates just kept getting canceled. And so we've been trying to contact all of our applicants who had a submitted application who said, I want you to submit my test scores, but never submitted them, to say, are you sure you still want us to consider your test scores? Because we can actually change that so that we don't consider your test scores. And at that point, once we do that, then your file becomes complete and we can go into reviewing it. So no, we absolutely are aware of this issue.
Yeah, so if you are one of those students and you want to make that change where initially you said, yes, I want you to consider my test scores, but you haven't been able to test, all you need to do is either email your admissions counselor or you can email us at admissions@utah.edu. Make sure you include your name and your date of birth so we can make sure that it's you. And then we are more than happy to make that change and definitely encourage you to do that sooner rather than later so that we have time to make that change before our February 1 date that's coming up. So that's a great question.
I will just say, I know I've been in this business for a very long time, and all of you choose to submit your application on the day of the deadline. Do yourselves a favor and maybe do it a week before the deadline, a couple of days before the deadline. This is something I see over and over and over. And listen, I want you to take as much time as you need to make sure that your application is in the best shape possible. I don't want you to rush through it at all. But I also feel like you may be freaked out if you apply on the day of the deadline, and then you see, oh, they still didn't process my high school transcript. Don't worry, we're going to get to it. We get a lot of applications and loose materials on the day of the deadline, so sometimes it takes us a couple days to process all of that. But to avoid all that anxiety, sometimes I just kind of put it out there. Submit your applications a couple days before the deadline. I think it'll all process a lot quicker if you do that.
Yep. The other thing that I would say along with that is that we have definitely had instances where students, are delaying or they're waiting till that last minute, and then something happens. The power goes out in their neighborhood, or, just things beyond their control, and then they're not able to submit it on time. And this just causes a lot of undue stress. And we want this to be as easy as possible. And that's why we encourage you to connect with your admissions counselor if you have questions about filling out the application. We have the track your application status, so you can actually go in and see what has been received, what hasn't been received. These are all things that we try to provide to make this process as easy as possible and with the least amount of stress. Because this is a stressful thing, and we get it. But we want you to know that you don't have to go at it alone. And in fact, just to give you a heads up, over the next couple weeks, we are going to have several opportunities where you're going to be able to chat with admissions counselors as they walk through our admissions application with our application workshops on the 23rd and the 24th, I believe it is. We will be having some chats so on the 23rd, it's a Saturday, and that's from 10 to 1, where we'll have open chat time where you can just drop in and ask your questions. And then on the 24th from, I believe it's 4 to 7 p.m. Mountain Time, it's kind of the same thing. We'll be doing some Instagram live sessions as well to answer application questions. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities over the next 2 weeks to be able to get your questions answered, but you don't have to wait for those sessions. Feel free to reach out to us. Okay, so there is a question here, and this gets to something that we talked about earlier. So what's the timeline for having submitted December 1? I read that I may hear back on January 15th. That is absolutely correct. As we talked a little bit earlier, notifications have already gone out in the mail. So some of you may hear back early, but definitely on Friday the 15th, we will be notifying not only through the mail, but also through email and another kind of other fun, surprising way. So,
and just along those lines too, our next deadline for everyone who got it in after December 1st, but up to February 1st is the next deadline for Early Action 2. Those students will receive their admissions decision on March 1st. So we do a pretty quick turnaround for Early Action 2, which is nice.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm looking at some of the other questions. So one of the other kind of casualties of COVID, if we will, is the fact that, visiting campus has pretty much come to a stop. I mean, one of the reasons that we're doing this session tonight is the fact that we can't do it in person. And we were commiserating earlier today about how we can't wait to get back to being able to do in-person events. Our ambassadors are chomping at the bit to be able to give in-person tours. And, so the question that we get is, how do I make that decision? How do I really understand, is this going to be a good fit for me if I can't actually come to campus and see it in person? And that's a real concern. And that's a concern that we have in the Office of Admissions as an institution. And so, we've worked very hard to try and create a variety of opportunities virtually for students and families to learn about the University of Utah. So this past fall, we focused really hard on providing a lot of different virtual sessions, if you will, You can check those out on demand. And this has been the kind of interesting thing for me, is that we are finding that our on-demand content is being accessed literally 24 hours a day. Now, I don't recommend staying up until 2 a.m. to watch something from the University of Utah, but if you can't sleep, then learn about the U. But we are going to continue that into the fall, or into the spring. So everything that we've been doing this past fall has really been for students exploring the University of Utah. We are going to start shifting gears, and for students who have been admitted, we are going to start offering some virtual sessions, or a variety of virtual sessions, to just admitted students. And so you'll be hearing more about our admitted student virtual platform, where you can access that content both in sessions like this, where we're live, as well as on demand. You're going to find we're working on developing sessions where you're hearing from our students a lot, and not just our university ambassadors, but students from all over campus. Hearing from our academic colleges, because we know this time of the year, we're now really concerned about, okay, I've been admitted into this college or into this major. What are the faculty really like? And what are classes like? And those types of things. And we want to connect you with the right people so you can get those questions answered. We're working on a new series, which I'm super excited about, where we're going to have recent alum of the U talk about their experience at the U and how it's prepared them to do what they're doing now. And so that's going to be a really fun and exciting new addition to what we're doing. So keep an eye out. You will hear about all of these opportunities to explore the U more through our weekly Discovering the U emails that go out every Thursday morning, with a listing of all of the events the admissions office is doing, as well as all the events that our campus partners are doing. And there's a lot that's going on at the college level or the major level as well. So that is another way to continue to learn about the U, and to try and figure out, is this a good fit? The other thing I'll offer up is, if you want to talk with a current student, let us know. And we will put you in touch with one of our ambassadors, or we'll work with the colleges to connect you with somebody in your major so that you can hear firsthand from a current student what it's really like to be at the University of Utah. The final thing is, we think about campus tours and wanting to see what the campus is like. I'm really excited that tomorrow we are launching a new kind of virtual tour, where our university ambassadors, they're actually going to walk you through a photo slideshow of all the stops that you would normally see on a campus tour, and they're going to give the campus tour as if you're doing it in person. The benefit is you get to hang out on your couch if you want, and you don't have to worry about walking the hills here on campus. But that's the benefit of being at the U, is that you do get your exercise every day. So these are some of the ways that you can really kind of explore and experience the U in a virtual way.
Yeah, and being in this profession, you hear the stories over and over. Mateo, I'm sure you've heard this a million times, is you talk to students who end up coming and enrolling. It doesn't matter if it's the University of Utah or any other school in the country. And they're just like, I stepped on campus and I just kind of knew, like, I looked around and I saw the energy and just the tour guide, just listening to them talk about the things they're involved in and all that sort of stuff. And I just knew I had to go there. And every college and university in the country is now, wondering, how are we going to replicate that? How are we going to give these students who are stuck at home the opportunity to kind of get that same feeling? And I think the reality is that I don't know if you can. We're doing our best, though, to kind of give you as much information as you possibly can to make a well-informed decision. Like Mateo said, all the different ways that you can get a sense of it. But I remember when I didn't know really anything about the University of Utah before I came to work here. But when I came to look at the school for the first time, just for me to see if I wanted to work here, I'll never forget that feeling of, because the University of Utah is elevated above the whole city, and it's situated right up against the foothills here in Salt Lake City, just a couple minutes literally from downtown Salt Lake City. And that drive that you go up and you turn the corner to go to where our building is, and you look out on the entire Salt Lake Valley, and you see the mountains that are right there, literally all around you is the mountains. And I can remember parking and getting out and walking around and seeing these beautiful facilities and just thinking, man, people just need to get here. If people step foot on this campus, like, I had no idea. And as soon as I saw just kind of where it is, and you've got this beautiful campus that's situated where it is, but in like 2 minutes, you can be in the heart of, a major city with all of the benefits of, an urban environment. It's like the best of both worlds. And I think that our tour guides really kind of use that phrase a lot when they talk about the U. I definitely felt that. And, when I think about our applicants, I am bummed that, as many, people who live locally sometimes will come to campus and walk around and they have that benefit, but the vast majority of our students who are admitted may not have that experience. Hopefully we'll get there later in the spring with everything that's going on now. But as of today, that's not happening. We don't have live on-campus tours for everyone's safety. And so we really want to make sure that you can get that feel, that you can feel that excitement, that this is a place for you. And like Mateo was saying, part of that excitement comes from what our tour guides are saying when they're leading you on a campus tour. Our tour guides are amazing. They're doing incredible things. And they are still very involved in all of these virtual activities that we're doing. So I absolutely encourage you to sign up for one of these virtual tours. I know it's not the same. I totally get it. I'm not going to pretend like it's the same. But at least it's a way to connect with one of our students and to make a connection with them. Our students are they're very upset that they can't do live on campus tours. They have this job because they want to connect with you in person. And so we're giving them the opportunity to do that virtually, which I'm really excited about. And one thing that I would also recommend that you do is, you're following us on University of Utah admissions, Facebook, Instagram, all of that stuff. But I would also, encourage you to follow all the different departments, academic departments, clubs and organizations. They will all have social media platforms. They are all still doing programming for our students who are enrolled this year. And we have a lot of students enrolled. This year was our largest and most diverse freshman class in the history of the University of Utah. And so we have students who are heavily involved in things that are going on the campus, albeit virtually. So definitely look at all those things. They have content that they're sharing, videos that they're sharing. So you can get a little bit of a sense of the community that we have here. We have a very, very strong sense of community at the University of Utah. And it's a big school, right? But at the end of the day, there are so many different things that you can get involved in. You're not going to be involved in everything, right? You're going to find that 1, 2, 3 things where you're going to meet, your friends for life. And so just make sure that if you're interested in something in college, that you explore a way to get to know those specifically via social media, because you'll be surprised at the number of accounts that all the different departments are. Contact them directly. They will help you get in touch with faculty. They will help you get in touch with current students in their department. So for example, we had a student in our College of Science do an Instagram takeover the other day where she talked all about being a doing a science research program. And, she is, housed within the College of Science, but took over our account. And so know that students and faculty in all the different academic departments are very excited to connect with you, not just us. And we're happy to make those introductions, being in the central admissions office, but just know that all of them are there. I would also say that news is still happening, of course. Events are still happening. And so something that I always recommend that people do when they visit a college campus is to pick up a school paper, a daily newspaper, just to get a sense like what's going on the campus. What are people talking about? What are the opinion articles and things like that? And so I think that is one of the most interesting ways to get to know the vibe of the campus, to get to know what is being discussed, what's being debated, and you can still do that. If our school paper, our student paper has Instagrams, channels. They also have their site fully operational, adding stories and news constantly every single day. They were heavily involved in covering the vice presidential debate, which occurred in October, fact checking, and doing all these sorts of things. And so I really encourage you to do things like that as well, to get a sense of what are students talking about on campus. So those are just some other things to think about in the absence of physically stepping foot on campus. But believe us, as soon as it's safe and as soon as you're able to come to campus, we want you here. We want you to come to campus. We want you to step foot, because I guarantee it, once you get here and you see it, you'll understand exactly what we're talking about.
Thanks, John. Those are some fantastic tips as students continue their college search and selection process. As I look at the time, we have been talking for a while, and I haven't seen any questions for a while now. So if you have a question, go ahead and throw it in the Q&A box real quick, and we would be happy to answer that. Otherwise, I think we're going to go ahead and close out. And just as a reminder, this session, you can come back and watch it when you want to, using the same link that you used to access it today. We also encourage you to connect with your admissions counselor. You can find your admissions counselor at our website, admissions.utah.edu, and scroll to the bottom of the page, and there'll be a link for Find Your Admissions Counselor, and you can find it based off of either the state that you live in, or if you're here in Utah, we go based off of your high school. So that's a way that you can connect with your primary point of contact for the Office of Admissions and the University of Utah as you continue your journey to explore. We want to thank you for your time and joining us, because we know that your time is precious. We know that a lot of you are zoomed out already, but we appreciate you joining us and asking your questions and everything. So have a great night. Thank you so much, and let us know how we can help. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone.